Hey everybody, it's the end of summer and I have a garden full of basil, and I think the best thing to do with all that basil is to make some freshly made pesto. Now here's the thing, is it better to make it with a mortar and pestle or a standard food processor? In this video, we're gonna find out. But first, let's get some fresh basil. Not to get into too much history, but worth noting that basil pesto started in Liguria, Italy, where olive oil, pine nuts, and fresh buttery basil were local and abundant. One of the reasons pesto became so popular was the city of Genoa was and is one of the busiest ports in Italy and now the European Union. It's one reason the French have pistou, the Spanish have romescu, the Greeks have their own with olives, and I've even had a Peruvian pesto with queso fresco that was outstanding. I highly recommend it. Italy also has different varieties based on their local ingredients, ones with orange and lemon, and I've had one recently with tomato and almonds, but to be honest, I prefer my pesto green. Which is why we're going to make the original Genovese pesto. The recipe is fairly straightforward, but I wanted to offer some tips I learned along the way. The recipe I'm using is inspired by the godmother of Italian cooking, Marcella Hazan. While researching for this, so many people on random food forums swore by it, or the recipes themselves were close variations of it. Plus, Hazan says adding her secret ingredient, butter, will transform any ordinary pesto into extraordinary. One of the challenges I noted was that there was no real consistency with the recipes. As you can see, there's a lot of variation, how much basil, how much oil, or even how much cheese you should or should not add. That's the great thing about pesto, there's a lot of room to improvise. I'll post both recipes below and use whichever makes you most comfortable, but also screen grab the cheat sheet I posted if you want to create your own. For the taste test, I'll be making 3 pestos. The first is in a food processor, and the second is in a food processor as well, but I'll be adding lemon juice and lemon zest. And for the third, we'll be using the star of this episode, the mortar and pestle, and we can finally figure out, is it really worth it? Now that we have our basil, just be sure to wash and dry your basil as best possible. And where you can, use good quality Italian ingredients if you can find them in the store, like the oil and cheeses. If you can't find pecorino, try using Spanish manchego instead. All right, let's begin. Add all the ingredients to the food processor one at a time or all together. Check the consistency. Then add the oil slowly to allow it to emulsify. Check to see if you need to add more, or if it looks good, then add the butter. Just eyeballing about 40 grams or 3 tablespoons, give or take. I think I'm using a little less. I'm okay with that, but we all know butter does make things better. Sorry to all my vegans out there. It's that simple and fast. For the next variation, I wanted to add lemon juice and zest. First off, I love adding lemon zest to my food, but I heard this is one way to maintain the green color and prevent it from going brown or black. Another way to keep your pesto green is to blanch the basil, but it seems like a lot of unnecessary extra work. The rest is pretty much the same. Add oil and butter and you're done. Now for the real star of the show, the mortar and pestle. This is the real magic. The food processor pesto was super easy, incorporating all the ingredients. I did notice that the food processor didn't get the pine nuts as fine as I thought, but it gives a little texture, which I really like. So I'm really excited to start using this mortar and pestle. And I have all my ingredients laid out for me. And if you haven't tried drinking some olive oil, I strongly recommend it. It is a very interesting experience. Whoa, okay, maybe don't do it too much. All right, let's get this started. The order matters a bit more with the mortar and pestle. Start off with the garlic, salt, and pine nuts, and make sure that it's a fine paste. Once you feel confident that it's fairly smooth, you can start adding the spinach a little at a time. This is where the real work comes in. Hey, so I'm not even halfway done. I have most of the basil in here, but I have to say that this is a lot of energy. I have pulverized the garlic and the pine nuts to a nice paste. And the basil is breaking down. Those salt crystals act as an abrasive, as well as the mortar itself is abrasive on the inside, and the pestle is doing its magic slowly. So we'll see how this goes. I have a little more basil to add, and then the cheeses and oil, and then we can do the taste test. All right, see you at the finish line. I'll speed up this bit and say that as far as saving time, the food processor wins hands down. This whole process, from my first time doing it, took about 20 to 25 minutes. Well, I finally finished, I think. I'm not 100% sure because the consistency looks way different than the final product of the food processor. But we still have to add that secret ingredient. Then we can do a side-by-side comparison of the mortar and pestle version versus the food processor. Let's do this. We have 3 pestos here, 2 done by the food processor and 1 done by this beast, the mortar and pestle. So we're gonna do a quick taste test of all 3, one having the lemon rind and the lemon juice added to it. I'm really excited to try that one. So let's start with that one. That's this one here. As you can see, the consistency is very similar to that of the other food processor one. I definitely can taste the pecorino. It is a very sharp, prominent cheese, but I do like the aromatics of the lemon. Let's get back to the other food processor one. If you can see this one, same consistency, but I'm noticing a little more oil on the top. Maybe it's because it's been sitting for a little bit. Yeah, these two are very similar. This, you don't have that lemony aroma or tinge to it, but this definitely has a very strong, prominent flavor. And I think that has to do with the olive oil. They say to use a light olive oil so that doesn't overpower the basil, but that's a good note for next time. And then finally, the mortar and pestle one. Oh my God, it's so amazing! Oh. As far as flavors go, this is far superior than the other two. It just is. I don't know what it is other than the fact that I've been mashing this thing with a pestle for so long. But in conclusion, is it worth getting a mortar and pestle? I don't think so. These two are fine, if not great pestos. Hey everyone, Future Alex here. It's taken me a few months to finish editing this video, and I just felt like I needed to pop in and give you all an update. I initially said that it wasn't worth getting a mortar and pestle, and if you need to make a lot of pesto and you're short on time, the food processor makes a really good pesto, especially with the recipe we used. But taste-wise, the mortar and pestle was definitely the clear winner. The flavors and consistency were far superior, if you couldn't already tell from the faces I was making. My initial hesitation was, did I really need a mortar and pestle? And I can say that since making this video, it's become a pretty useful tool in the kitchen. This mortar and pestle was only about $45 on Amazon, and if you're curious about getting one and you feel you will use it for other things and you have the kitchen counter space, then it is definitely worth it. I've made the pesto a few times since I started making this video, and my family loves it, and I know you will too. I want to say, if you like this video, please leave a comment, and I will see you at the next one. Thanks for watching.